can take this off, right? I'm mostly going to be standing off here to your left, pointing up at the screen. First of all, thanks for having me. I enjoy giving these talks. There have been dozens of them the last couple of years. John has told me to talk 2 hours. I've got my little watch set, and then there'll be 20 minutes for Q&A in the back, and then if people want to come up informally after that, until I pass out up here, I will be glad to talk to you. There's a nice lady named Ann in the back, and John and Ralph, when we originally contemplated my coming out here, said, well, everybody usually brings something to sell. Do you have something to sell? And I thought, well, gee, I really don't. I wrote a long report on the Foster death. It's about 380 pages in hard copy. It's available from a variety of copy shops. I don't get a dime from it. They just make it available for copying and shipping. If you want to get a hard copy of that, bear in mind you're paying for 380 pages of Xeroxing. One copy shop you can call is area code 301, the number 937-6500, and just ask for Hugh Sprunt's report on the Foster death. That report is also available various places on the World Wide Web. One site, I don't have a website, and I have no control over the sites that pick up this work of mine, but I'm glad it's out there. One website is www/ the main part of the URL is the letter C, a hyphen, the letter I, a hyphen, the letter W, and then .com. So I think it's like www/whatever c-i-w.com. But it turns out I did have something to sell. I've written a long article analyzing the Starr report on the Foster death. That was the one that was unsealed by the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals on October the 10th. And I wrote it's a long article. It's about 20,000 words. It's been picked up by 2 publishers. It'll be serialized in Media Bypass magazine over 3 months of issues starting in December. And it's also just started being advertised this week by Strategic Investment, Jim Davidson's newsletter. And I made it available to those folks on a one-time, non-exclusive basis. I kept the copyright, so this is just beginning to appear. And I thought, well, I'll bring along some high-tech 3.5-inch diskettes. So Ann back there has about 50 diskettes, a copy of not this huge report, the 380-pager that I wrote, but on those diskettes is a copy of, it's about a 45 or 50-page article I wrote dissecting the Starr report on the Foster death. It complements the viewgraph material you're seeing here tonight. It goes into some more detail in some areas and kind of does the word thing better than some of the pictures we'll be looking at tonight in some of the documents. So Ann has got those available back there. I think there are 49 left, and I'm asking $10 for them. And if you'd like to get one, feel free. You will be able to get it from Strategic Investment with a videotape for about $50, or you can get it also from Media Bypass by subscribing to the magazine. So I was hunting around for something to sell and finally found something. Let's see. As was mentioned, I guess Pat Knowlton and John Clark were out here 2 weeks ago tonight. I'm sort of the Foster person on the Knowlton legal team. John Clark is his attorney of record, and I first got involved with Pat shortly after he got his grand jury summons in October of '95. He was getting harassed in his apartment building, and Ambrose Evans Pritchard got a call from Pat where he wanted to be basically evacuated from his building because people were beating on his door and so on. So he called me. I happened to be in town, and the two of us and a friend of ours went down to sort of help Pat get out of his building. And when we showed up, the people doing the banging on the doors and the harassing phone calls went away. And that was probably a pretty good thing. But anyway, I've known Pat Knowlton since that time, and my talk is usually about 20% on Pat. But since you've heard all of that, I'm only going to be mentioning him in passing in connection with other events at Fort Marcy Park the day that Vince Foster's body was found there. Having said that, I think I'm ready to start. So let's fire this thing up. I've got a draftee here flipping view graphs. Let's just take this one will be the only one. Let's just take this one out of its little sleeve. And we played around with, oh yeah, that's not too bad. I'll move out of the way here in a minute off to the side so everybody can see. This is a nice color infrared. There we go. High altitude aerial photograph just to set the scene for you. This is Central Intelligence Agency here, Potomac River. This bridge right here is Chain Bridge Road. The White House would be about over in here. Vince Foster's body, if you see this little kind of a curved white thing coming off of the George Washington Parkway here, that is Fort Marcy Park. That is where his body was found. So this is just a nice set the scene type photo. Let's go on to the next one. Next one. You just start flipping them up there. Just leave all the others in the sleeves, and we're going to be going through a lot of view graphs. The good news is each one is going to be very short. This one is probably the longest one. I'm going to tell you a joke, and it has to do with what I want you to do tonight. This is the Green Building at MIT, where I was an undergraduate. It houses the meteorology people, the weather department. And some kids were taking a course there in an elective in meteorology, and the professor gave each of them a barometer and said, I want you guys to measure the height of this building. But he didn't tell them how to do it. And of course, what he had in mind was to use the barometer kind of like an altimeter on an airplane. You measure the pressure of the air at the bottom, pressure of the air at the top, get the difference, use some tables, figure out how tall the building is. But the point is this, is all of us here have different backgrounds. We all have different interests. We've all had different experiences. So what I want you to do is to sort of pay attention to what I'm describing tonight and filter it through your own experience and decide if I really made my point when the night is over. To give you an idea of the impact of these experiences, there were 4 kids in this class. The humanities major took the barometer to the top of the building and lowered it on a string, measured the length of the string, and she found out how tall the building was. The mathematics major took the barometer down and put it on the ground, measured how tall it was, measured the length of its shadow, and then ran over and measured the length of the shadow of the building in similar triangles, got the height of the building. The physics major took the barometer to the very top of the building and dropped it and measured how long it took for it to hit the ground, and there are formula that you can look up and get the height, how long it took, based on how long it took to hit the ground. Now, I could say the lawyer, but traditionally the story is the business major. Business major was the last person in this little class. He got his barometer, and he journeyed underground down here to the building superintendent's cubby, and he approached the building superintendent and said, hey, tell me how tall this building is, and I will give you this barometer. And so my point is the truth, there's a lot of pathways to the truth. The truth is where you find it. All of us get to the truth in our own ways. So one of the things I'm hoping in the question period, some of you people may see some stuff in this data tonight that I haven't seen and maybe make a connection that I haven't made. Let's go to the next one. We're going to really pick up the pace here. Mr. Foster, Vincent W. Foster, Jr., Deputy White House Counsel, born in Hope, as Mr. Clinton was, fellow partner at the Rose Law Firm with Hillary Clinton, found dead July 20, 1993, in Fort Marcy Park, Virginia. There have been 5 government investigations that have had something to do with his death. All of them reached the same conclusion, which is that he died of his own hand by a point-blank gunshot to the head. He ate his gun. And this happened in Fort Marcy Park, which is a Civil War earthen berm fort located, as you saw in the earlier aerial photograph, across the Potomac from Washington. In other words, the official conclusion says suicide in the park with the gun that was found in his hand. And what I hope to show you tonight is that it's very unlikely that that happened. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be showing you statements and conclusions in the 5 government reports on Foster's death. The latest one is this one, Ken Starr. He turned into the 3-judge Circuit Court of Appeals panel. His boss is in Washington last July, and it was unsealed October the 10th. The article that I mentioned that's on the diskette is sort of my analysis of the 114 pages of the Starr report that was written by the government employees. And as you heard a couple of weeks ago, Pat Knowlton's attorney, John Clark, Pat, me, some other people, worked up a 20-page evidential insert that the judges ordered included with Starr's report, much to his displeasure. But anyway, we're going to be taking the words in those official reports, the conclusions and so on, and we're going to be comparing them to the underlying government investigative record. In other words, if Mr. Fisk, who was the first Whitewater counsel, says Dr. So-and-so at Fort Marcy Park saw this, well, his source for that is the FBI interview of Dr. So-and-so. And so this is just an example, we would go to his FBI interview and presumably would get all disturbed and excited if he told the FBI the opposite of what the government report said he said. You find a couple of hundred of these things and you begin to worry. So we're going to go through real fast here. The first report on the death was the so-called Park Police report. They had jurisdiction that night at Fort Marcy Park. They did an investigation. Next one. You're going to probably have to be on your feet or your knees are going to break because we're going to go through real fast. This is the second one in time. This is Mr. Fisk's report, June 30, 1994, and he was called the first Whitewater Independent Counsel. Actually, he was a regulatory counsel. He was not appointed through the independent counsel process because one did not exist at that time, but he nonetheless called himself an independent counsel. And for whatever you can say about him, at least he put his name on his report. Next one. This is a summary report written by the ranking Republican on the Committee of Government Operations in the U.S. House, Bill Klinger, dated August 12, 1994. He too did a report, death of White House counsel Vince Foster. Next one. This is the fourth report in chronological order. It was written by the staff of the Senate Whitewater Committee. It was produced in January of 95. And then finally, the next one, you can stick it up, is Mr. Starr's report, characterized this way, made public 10/10/97. Mr. Starr's name, the name of nobody in his office appears on this report, which I found a little interesting. Okay, let's keep going. This is something that you probably saw with Pat Knowlton and John Clark. This is the order unsealing Starr's report, and it says, decreed the report on the death of Vince Foster made public inclusive of an appendix containing all comments or factual information submitted by any individual, Pat Knowlton's 20-page evidential insert is right in there. Next one. I mentioned that Ken Starr's report did not have his name on it. One of the things that I'm sure Pat and John told you a couple of weeks ago was Mr. Starr fought this tooth and nail. He was turned down several times. This is the last page of a 9-page motion that he turned in resisting this inclusion of Knowlton's letter, and he signed that motion personally. He put his full faith and credit behind it. Former Solicitor General, former Circuit Court of Appeals judge. Next one.